We all look for inspiration, but for those who transition out of the military, inspiration can often be hard to find. Tonight, we'll be talking with veterans who found their inspiration in the culinary arts. Join us as we talk with Veterans in the Kitchen. Welcome to Veterans Voices. I'm Elena Kim. Tonight, we'll be talking with veterans who have made cooking a hobby, a calling, and a profession. If you're watching live, we want you to be a part of this conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170, send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1, or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. My co-host tonight is Army veteran Stephen Burchick. Our first guests are with organizations that help veterans learn to cook and get groceries at home. Please welcome Tiffany Chin of the Veterans Love Foundation and Jim Donnelly of Meals on Wheels to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being here, guys. Tiffany, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Sure. I was in the U.S. Navy as a damage controlman aboard the USS Dixon, stationed out of Point Loma, San Diego. And I went on a Westpac and traveled the ocean for a little while. I was in for 4 years and then came back home.
Excellent. And Jim, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Yeah, I dropped out of college in 1962 and joined the Marine Corps. Spent 3 years. I became a crypto and teletype technician and spent most of my time in Cherry Point, North Carolina with one Caribbean cruise and one cruise to Spain and the Canary Islands, and got out and went back to school and finished college on the GI Bill.
Excellent. And Tiffany, what kind of led you to the work that you're doing now?
It was a long journey of me dealing with my PTSD. I didn't deal with my PTSD when I got out of the military, gained a bunch of weight. And when I had children, I decided to not let weight control me anymore or my children. And so I started going to counseling through the vet center and started cooking healthy food so that I could live a better lifestyle, and then found out that I really loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Jim, how did you transition from Marine Corps technology to cooking?
Well, I cook for fun. I've always cooked since I was a child. My parents encouraged me. I have pictures, and pardon my dogs, I stepped on one. But I always enjoyed cooking, and then I started volunteering at the Danville Senior Center, and they asked me if people knew I knew how to cook, and they asked me to teach a cooking class. So up until the pandemic, every couple months, taught cooking classes of foods from the 30-some countries I've worked in around the world. It was fascinating, lots of fun.
Awesome. And we saw a picture of you there. It looked like you were handing groceries over, Jim. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a volunteer for Meals on Wheels Diablo region, and we deliver meals to lots of people. We delivered 700,000 meals this year, last year. It's a big need. So part of what I do, there's many ways I volunteer for them, but one is their Friendly Helper program, where I will go out and take people shopping or go shopping for them and bring the food back or take them to a doctor's. There was, unfortunately, the last Friday of a program we had at local senior centers where seniors could come up and get a package of 5 frozen and 2 fresh meals each week. But that program got discontinued as the new fiscal year and new monies come in. So.
And it sounds like you're delivering groceries. There's also some services for veterans to come and pick up food. Does Meals on Wheels offer any other types of services?
Oh, we offer lots of services. We have lots of, well, we have the delivery of meals. We have a number of different meals programs, from just full meals to breakfast meals to some ethnic meals. But we also have exercise programs and fall prevention programs. We have programs for fall prevention. We've just got a grant from Meals on Wheels America to outfit homes that need it with grab bars and other assistant devices. And that grant is directly related only for veterans.
Excellent.
So last year we put assisting devices in about 380 homes at no cost.
Wow.
To people to get them.
Tiffany, can you tell us a little bit about your foundation? It's called Love Foundation?
Veteran Love Foundation. So while I was going through counseling, my counselor kept pushing me to try new things and try and find things that I loved, and realized that I loved cooking and loved talking about it and loved getting people to eat healthy food. So she helped me on this road, and I opened a nonprofit right before COVID. So it's been a bit challenging. And so right before COVID, I started going to the Concord Vet Center and was cooking meals and teaching classes for a local Vietnam vet group that met every Thursday. And I would go every Thursday and bring them food, and we would talk about how to eat healthier and how to change your diet and how to make good food that doesn't take forever. And then during COVID, I enlisted my 4-H group, because I'm also a 4-H leader. And we started adapting and starting to do other things for veterans. And we started walking their dogs and washing their cars and picking up food that they needed, or helping them with their gardening, or we got a fence built and a yard landscaped for a couple veterans. And so I've just been kind of adapting as the time changes and just helping veterans however I can. This last year, I did a fabulous women veterans event out at Borges Ranch. We had a tea party at a ranch, and it was a lot of fun. So
That's awesome. You're going to have to invite me to the next one, Tiffany. I wanted to ask you, earlier you mentioned to us that when you first got out of the military, you were sort of coping with PTSD without knowing that you were coping with PTSD. At what point did it kind of become obvious to you, or did you kind of tune into yourself to realize, hey, there's something going on here?
You know, it actually kind of didn't become obvious to me until a friend of mine pointed it out. I have a friend of mine who worked for the Martinez Vet Center for a really long time and had worked with a ton of veterans. And she was very nicely and was like, you know, you have a lot of the same symptoms that my friend had, my other clients have. Were you in the military by chance? And I was like, yeah. And we started talking about it, and she actually was who told me about the Concord Vet Center, and helped me be able to find a counselor and help me on the path of recovery. Without her, I don't know where I would be, because it was just easy for me to bury it and not pay attention to it than it was for me to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, did your counselor at some point, and you have a conversation about cooking, did that come up at all in your relationship with food?
It did, because I had told her how I had been very overweight prior to starting with the counseling. And within a year of counseling, I lost about 75 pounds.
Wow.
And so it was amazing to me that just dealing with my own drama helped me be able to not use food as a coping mechanism. And so then I started really paying attention and seeing what I was eating, when I was eating, and changing how I was eating. And then she was my first guinea pig, and I would bring in recipes that I was trying, and she would try all my food. And then the Vietnam vets at her group also would try all my food. So it was just a really great learning experience for me. I don't know what I would have done without the Concord Vet Center. They really helped me move forward in my life.
That's so cool. I'm sure that the counselor and the veterans there didn't mind being the guinea pigs for you.
And not at all. They were always like, when are you trying something new?
When will Tiffany be back? Well, that's awesome. I love how, you talked about how your relationship with food kind of started off a little bit negatively when you first left the military, but you were really able to take control of that and turn it into something where you're now giving back to others through your foundation. Do you cook? You mentioned you have 2 kids. Do you cook with your children?
Yes. I had them in the kitchen from the time they were 2 years old. I wanted them to be able to know how to cook and be able to make healthy meals from a young age. And now each of them cooks for dinner once a week on their own, and they find their own recipes and
Wow.
do the shopping. And I love what they come up with, and it's been a really fun journey. And my daughter leans towards baking; she loves to bake, and my son leans towards making entrees and side dishes. So it's been a good combination between the two.
That's the perfect match. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, talking about counseling, I've got a nephew that is involved with Meals on Wheels on the East Coast, and he describes how he has a regular schedule, delivers the meals, but he's got several people that, he drops the meal off, he's trying to stay on schedule, and they wind up asking him questions and chatting with him. And he said he sometimes feels more like a counselor than a food delivery person. What's your experience like that on the?
Many of our volunteers feel the same way. These people, they're homebound typically. They need to have conversations. They need the interaction. So, when you deliver a meal, that might be the only person they see for a day or two. Take time to talk to them. We also at Meals on Wheels Diablo region, we have other programs. We have a friendly visitors program where volunteers commit to going in and spending an hour a week with someone, or friendly callers program where people commit to calling, or as I said, the friendly helpers program, which I participate in. But they all involve the interaction with the people. Mentioned for the Navy. One of the people I took a ride to was a Navy vet, a woman Navy vet. She was one of the first women clinical lab technicians in the Navy. She was 101 years old.
Wow.
Just before the pandemic, and I took her for a ride from Rossmore up to the Martinez Vet Center and then back. But what a fascinating woman, and what a great time for me to share that with her. So, the vets that I know that volunteer for older people, they just find it so rewarding.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, we heard a little bit from Tiffany about this. Jim, do you find cooking or helping veterans as they gather the things for them to cook, do you find that process healing?
Oh, yeah. For them and for me, I enjoy it because I love to cook. And I love to help. As I said, I used to volunteer a cooking class at the Danville Senior Center, where just sharing it and helping other people learn to make food and really enjoy the process, and then enjoy the food when you're through it. It can be really healing.
And Tiffany, with the Veterans Love Foundation and the work that you were doing with the Vet Center, did you ever see other folks pick up on your love for cooking and find healing in that, in your experience?
Oh, yeah. I've worked with several veterans that working with them made a big difference in their lives. I had veterans that were on daily medications for years, and them changing their diets and paying attention to what they're eating. They were no longer on the daily meds, which made a huge difference in their life. And other veterans who had never cooked anything ever in their life. And they just felt such a sense of pride in their cooking. And then they also started to see their loss of weight because they were no longer eating out all the time. And when you make it from home, it's usually healthier and more nutritious. And so they were just dropping the weight, and they were like, I don't know what's doing. All I'm doing is cooking, And so it's just been great to see their journeys and see them be inspired, and them teach their children how to cook, and then teach their grandchildren how to cook. It's just it's very inspiring to see the flow that keeps going. Once you learn one, it's just like this never ending cooking journey that everyone gets to go on.
It's
Go ahead, Jim.
the enjoyment I get when someone would come up to me a month after a class and say, I made the meal and it came out so good and I felt so good about it. That is really a great feeling,
Yes,
That's excellent.
indeed.
That's excellent.
There was a report today that alcohol consumption took a big jump during COVID and has not really come down much. Once again, you're involved with food, but have you heard any anecdotal evidence or personal experience with some of your clients that indicated higher alcohol use?
My clients that started drinking a lot, and it worried them. And so then I started teaching them how to make mocktails. And so it helped them to be able to transition from drinking as much alcohol, and they still felt like they were creating something and doing something and having a drink. And they realized that it was more just they wanted that, I'm going to create a fancy drink for myself and I'm going to drink. And so I helped them be able to come up with mocktails that were also relaxing and good for them. And then they would drink it and feel better and energized at the same time. And it made a big difference.
Bit of a ritual that you're describing, Tiffany, which is so interesting because we have those rituals in the military, and you get out and you might come up with unhealthy rituals to cope with things, but I love that you're teaching folks new and more healthy rituals. Tiffany, what do you aim to do with Veterans Love Foundation moving forward? I know you said there was a little pause because of the pandemic.
More events and more in person. Before the pandemic, I was doing cooking classes in people's homes and doing them at local community centers where we could have a group of people come together. I'd love to be able to go back to doing that. It's kind of like a little party, everybody's learning how to cook, and then you get to eat afterwards. And so I just, it's really fun, and I want to go back to doing that and doing some more large events. Now that we're allowed to come back out, I do cooking events at our horse barn too. And so they get to come ride a horse, and then we have some barbecue and some fun food and make just an event out of everything.
Well, I love it. I hear events, tea parties, mocktails. So Jim, come pick us all up, and we'll hang out this weekend. All right, team, when we return, we're going to talk about some veterans who have made a career in the culinary arts. Right now, let's watch Stephen Burchick ask veterans about the idea of reinstating a draft in this month's A Vet on the Street.
I'm Steve Burchick, and we're here at the Crockett Community Center on Armed Forces Day. Our segment today is Vet on the Street, and our question is, it's been 50 years since the U.S. implemented an all-volunteer force. Some people are wondering, should we re-implement a draft, perhaps with a non-military option?
I'm Bill Gibson. I was drafted, served with the 377th Artillery in Vietnam, the 101st, December 68 to January 70. Do I think that we should consider bringing back the draft with non-military jobs? I do. It gives the people opportunity to understand what it is to support this country. And I think it's a win-win situation.
Good morning. My name is Michael Slattengren. I served in the United States Navy from 1965 to 1970. And to that question, yes, I think it would be good for all of our young people and for our country if we did bring back the draft. We've been running a little short on the number of people we need in the military each year, the last couple of years. But an option for military service could be service to our country in some form, whether it's helping areas that have been hit by earthquakes or hurricanes, floods, whatever it might be. It could be the Habitat for Humanity. It could be building houses for the homeless people. Some kind of civil volunteer, giving back to your country that we're so lucky to live in, I think would be a great idea.
Good morning. My name is Hector Ines, U.S. Army veteran. I think the country will consider moving back to a draft, including a non-military option, such as helping or building homes for homeless people. At the same time, helping them out in other terms of employment and other sacrifices here in this country.
Jerry Littleton again. I think a government service of some sort should be instituted, yes.
Yeah, my name is Earl Brown. I served in the Air Force from 1968 to 1973. I think we should bring back some kind of a draft with non-military options. There's plenty of service organizations in this country that need help, and I think that's part of your civic duty as an American.
Hi, my name is Nicole Sirachi Wynn. I'm a United States Marine Corps and Army vet. I really like the idea of service, but I feel like with a country as big as ours, there's no need to bring back the draft specifically, but I would really love to have other options, such as I think every young adult should experience either the military in some sense or other types of community involvement where you're giving back just to, really ground Americans. And I just love the idea of giving back to the community.
In the kitchen. If you're watching live, we invite you to be a part of the conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170. Send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1, or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you. And Stephen, my co-host, you have a little bit of background in the culinary arts yourself. Thank you for bringing these hats in. Talk to us a little bit. Share with us.
I was Army infantry. When I got out, I wound up moving into the food industry. Most of my time spent in the chocolate business. So I brought some chocolates today.
They look
had
delicious.
a lot of. They are. We managed to keep the crew from chewing them up before the show is over. So we got a chance to look at it. I had a great time. Worked with some great people. And the one thing about chocolate is when we dealt with customers and they would come in, everybody's in a good mood in a chocolate shop.
I bet.
So it's great for your mental health, and with moderation is a great supplement for your diet. So.
I love it. Well, thank you for bringing these in today and putting all of us into a good mood as well. Let's introduce our next two veterans who make their living in the kitchen. Please welcome Aaron Prater, culinary instructor for Diablo Valley College, and Chef Archie Lee Smith Jr., owner of Archie's S&Q Smoked and Barbecued Meats. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Archie, can you start us off and tell us a little bit about your military career?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I was in the Air Force from 1996 to 2000, and I was a weapons load crew member, nuclear armament systems journeyman. Basically, I loaded bombs and munitions on F-16s and several different deployments. And that was basically my job during the military.
Wow, excellent. Aaron, can you tell us a little bit about your military career?
Sure. So I served from 1995 through 2002. I was a combat correspondent in the Marine Corps. Basically, I was the journalist, so trained in TV and print journalism, as well as public relations and media relations. Since I spent most of my time behind the camera, the only picture of me I have in service is my boot camp photo there. And then on the right, that's me working with a community organization that brought together chefs, nutritionists, and MDs to do cooking specifically related to certain health issues. So it might be diabetes or heart disease or cancer. The nutritionist would talk about what foods were good. The doctor would talk about the diets, and then I would do a cooking demo on how to make some of those foods at home.
And Aaron, combat journalist sounds like an extremely stressful profession. And Archie, you also mentioned what I imagine to be a very stressful profession. How difficult was your military transition, coming out of the military and entering the civilian world?
For me, it was actually pretty difficult. In fact, I didn't realize how difficult it was until about a decade in. I remember going back to college on the GI Bill, and one of my instructors told me that it took him 10 years before he realized that the world wasn't the same as the military. It didn't operate the same. And it just clicked with me because I recognized that I had been expecting people to follow orders and meet deadlines and show up on time and do things the way that I had been trained to do for so long. And I realized part of my frustration and part of my anxiety about transition came from the fact that I had an expectation that the world worked a certain way like the military, and it doesn't. So that's one of the reasons I found solace in the kitchen is there's some of that same structure built into the kitchen.
And go ahead, Archie.
Yeah, for me, it was not difficult because, well, for me, it was frustrating because I didn't want to get out. I had a plan to stay in and cross-train into another career field and, just keep going in the military until I really found out what I wanted to do, because I knew that weapons loading was not going to be a career. So then when I got out, I went to file a claim for benefits because I got out due to a knee injury. So when I went to file for benefits, I was told, well, with the way that you speak, we really think you might want to look at this as employment. And that's how I got started with the Disabled American Veterans Service Organization. And I became a national service officer and started off actually going to the bases and doing the out processing briefing that we all went through, the TAP final out briefing, where I go through your service medical records and tell you about what you need to get or do when you get out of the military, how it's about to be when you're about to get out, and the benefits that you need to start looking to be ready to apply for when you get out of the military. So it kind of helped me learn how to use the system in helping other veterans as well as myself. So I continue to do that in a volunteer aspect. And it's just been a great time for me, just helping other veterans understand their benefits and cooking at the same time and doing them both. It's been great.
It sounds like working with the Disabled American Veterans provided you some structure and some guidance and also a purpose, or at least you turned it into a purpose in terms of helping other veterans. So I think that's so cool, getting involved in these veteran service organizations. I know, Steve, you're involved in a few local ones as well, correct?
Absolutely. And cooking does become part of it because you got large groups of people, and yes. Sometimes we do it ourselves. Other times it's used as a fundraiser. One of the groups I belong to has a big crab feed every year. There's another group in the same building, and they put together a corned beef and cabbage around St. Patty's Day. Archie, you had your photo up there a minute ago, and your hat, VSO hat or something looked interesting, but you had two huge pieces of meat that looked so tasty. How did you wind up with all the choices for foods to cook and eat? Did you wind up with barbecue?
My family's from Arkansas, a small town, 500-person town called Wilmot, Arkansas. It's maybe 5 minutes from Louisiana and 20 minutes from Mississippi. And they were sharecroppers. So we had to cook for 30 to 50 people in a short amount of time. 2 times a day at least. And I would just watch my grandmother and my aunts and my uncles just come together around this big pit, and they'd have all this heat on one side and no heat on the other side, and they'd sear the meat, have it looking like it's almost done, and I'd go to grab some meat off the pit and they'd slap my hand and then that's not done, you're gonna get sick. And I'm like, wait, it looks done to me. So I'd move it, they'd move it over, and this is the way that I learned how to cook. And it was mass amounts of people. So I just kind of segued that into, when I was volunteering for the VFW out in Brentwood at the Memorial Building. It's the Marine Corps League, the American Legion, the VFW. And I'm just cooking for, all these veterans organizations and basically practicing, cutting my teeth, cooking for 200 or 300 people at a time. And, I've done a big crab feed for the Marine Corps League, 300 people, made a huge pasta sauce and, put crab on the barbecue pit for them, things they never seen before. But it's just been a great ride to be able to incorporate food and veterans because like everybody else is saying that, you get a real feeling of enjoyment from really the process of cooking and following instructions the right way and how it comes out when you follow the instructions the right way. And then the response from people and the gratefulness that you feel, and that you see from them just saying thank you, and it's just a good thing.
And this question could be for Aaron or Archie. Have you reached out to the VA in terms of getting assistance with learning your craft or learning your skill?
Well, I used my GI Bill for culinary school, and then I'm also a disabled veteran, and so I've since used the VRNE program. I'm currently in a master's degree program in horticulture with an emphasis in urban food systems, basically how we get food from the fields and from the farmers to people, particularly in urban environments. And so the VA has been a huge benefit to my career and a great asset.
That's amazing. Archie, did you also participate in a VA program, or was your kind of introduction more, as you said, because your family's from Arkansas, you kind of grew up with the craft?
That's the background of the cooking for me. But, when my disabilities got too bad for me, to where I had to stop being a national service officer. I couldn't drive to work. I couldn't focus. I couldn't go to the hearings and represent veterans properly. So it got to where I had to let that part go. And I felt like, how am I this young and I can't work for a 40-hour work week? This is not making any sense, and that's when the benefit of Voc Rehab, it was called vocational rehabilitation at the time. Now it's VRNE, Veteran Readiness Employment. And there's options where you can apply for vocational rehabilitation for self-employment and assisted living kind of situation, to where even if you can't find employment, it can help you with what you're trying to do. So I'm looking to cook, and I wanted to cook for a large amounts of people, and I wanted to be a private chef. I wasn't able to work and be a restaurateur and a chef at a big restaurant or things like that. I couldn't do the 9 to 5. So I said, you know what? I can cook in someone's backyard. I can have an event where I'm cooking for Assemblyman, when he was at the time Assemblyman Jim Frazier, and 300 and something guests. So those things I could do. And I'm like, you know what? The VA was there for me because I wrote out the plan the right way. They were looking at my disabilities and saying, you can't be a chef because you have all these orthopedic conditions. And I was saying, I need to go to this school. I need to get this degree because I want to be able to benefit myself and my family by cooking when I can and helping my family make money when I can. And that actually worked for me. So now, I was able to go to Augustus Escoffier. It's an online school. And then I was able to externship for a month or so at Vic Stewart's Steakhouse out in Brentwood. And it was just awesome to be able to go through that kitchen environment and be told that, you have what it takes to become a chef and work here, but your disabilities are just stopping you from that. So go ahead and pursue the things that can work with your conditions. And that's what the VA was able to give me after I asked several times, in the right way, how can you help me get what I'm trying to get? And, you know, you have to be more specific. As veterans, we have to be more specific with what we're asking for from our government. You know, we have to be very direct in what we're asking. And that's what helped me.
I'd like to second that. You know, I was told that the VA doesn't ever pay for graduate school, but there were no regulations for that. There was nothing anybody could point to. I just had to ask the right way, and I had to be an advocate for myself. And that's one thing that I know. I've got two brothers who are veterans and they always get frustrated because they make these requests and it never goes through. And I keep telling them, hey, you've got to. Don't take no the first time. You've got to ask the right way. You've got to resubmit your package, tweak it, make it into the language that they want to hear. The VA is there to help you. They want to help you. They just have to follow their own procedures. And so you need to match up your wishes and needs with their systems. And once you do that, they're there for you 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love that. And I agree wholeheartedly with everything you guys are saying. It sounds like each of you were very focused in terms of your goals, but I love that you're sharing that message now with other veterans that there are programs out there for you. You just have to be determined and keep knocking on that door until it opens. So very cool.
Aaron, for veterans who are entrepreneurs and want to start a food business, I understand one of the biggest barriers to entry is meeting all the health department requirements, usually county level. I had heard for a while that some of the regulations are being loosened and potential restaurateurs, whatever, were being allowed to cook in a home kitchen under some circumstances until they built their business up and then move into a conventional facility. Do you know what the status of those programs are? And I'm sure it varies around the country.
It does. You're kind of touching on two subjects. One is the Food Safety Modernization Act, where those are it was signed 20 plus years ago, but that's actually making food code more strict. But there are better education services for it, and counties are better aware, better trained. The health inspectors know more about those than they did before. So I think it's easier now, but the restrictions are actually a little bit harder. But that second piece that you mentioned, those are referred to as cottage laws, and every state has different cottage laws, and every state allows you to do certain things within. Sometimes it could be cooking, sometimes it's more things like home canning and jams and things that you could sell at farmers markets. And so every state has a different list of approved foods that you could cook in a home kitchen before you need a commercial kitchen. And but you still need to get that food safety training no matter what. If anybody's interested, they're free to contact me at DVC, or another great resource is any university extension office. Those people are really well trained in food safety and cottage law as well. That's part of the work in my master's program. So I'm fairly familiar. I just moved here to California, so I'm not super up on California's cottage food laws, but that does give you some wiggle room to start a business in your home.
Yeah. I've actually tried, because I've watched some TV shows down south in Los Angeles area, and you see them, actually on a show, cooking from their home and doing these things. And that's not the case in Contra Costa County. But what you should do is get your ServSafe certification and become a ServSafe manager. You go through a course. It's not a lot of money. They give you a book. You learn it, and it goes through all the safety procedures, and it teaches you how to handle food the proper way. And it worked, and it gave me the encouragement to start off low, go to a flea market, set up, and have the VA purchase the equipment that I needed to have a food booth, and then get inspected constantly by inspectors every day, and get the product right, and get those things dialed in. And it was just a great opportunity.
Lots of great information there. When we return, we'll bring back all of tonight's guests to conclude our panel and answer your viewer questions. So stay with us.
Honestly, I'm not really sure why I'm calling. It's just,
I'm having nightmares.
My husband and I,
We're just fighting a lot.
I can't get any sleep.
Things just keep getting worse, and it's starting to feel like I can't do this by myself anymore.
We could use some help figuring things out.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you called. Why don't you tell me more about what's going on? There's no wrong reason to reach out for crisis support. Whatever you're going through, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help. Visit veteranscrisisline.net to learn more.
We're talking with veterans in the kitchen. If you're watching live, we want you to be a part of the conversation. Call us at 925-313-1170, send us a message through Facebook at Veterans Voices 1, or email us at veteransvoices@contracostatv.org. We want to hear from you.
We got everybody.
We've got everybody back. All right.
Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. Let's start with Tiffany. Tiffany, can you tell me about your most rewarding cooking experience?
Sure. I think my most rewarding was working with an Air Force veteran who had a lot of medical issues and taking daily meds, and the meds were giving a lot of side effects. And I worked with her to change her diet and to pay more attention to the food that she was intaking and do foods that were specific to her health issues. And within a year, she was done taking meds and didn't have to be on daily meds anymore. And she just was unbelievably grateful of the life change that she had just by paying more attention to her food and what she put into her body.
Wow, I think that's really interesting because a lot of veterans obviously are taking prescriptions that were, given to them by the VA. But the fact that you had this woman who was able to use food and nutrition to kind of wean off of those, I think a lot of veterans would find that really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. I know, Jim, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned that you get as much from these home visits and these rides to the grocery store as the veteran that you're serving. Can you tell us about your most rewarding experience in terms of working with Meals on Wheels?
Wow. I have this woman that I give a ride to probably once a month. Take her to the doctor, and she's just a fascinating woman. She's 95 and just full of life and energy. And she's lived in Europe, lived in other places in the world, and we just have, and so have I. So we've just have really interesting conversations about anything and everything. So it's the interacting with the people that I'm giving rides to. And this sounds corny, but it's true. Years ago, I went to a lecture by the Dalai Lama, and someone asked him about happiness. How can we be happy? And the Dalai Lama said, it's easy. Just help someone. And I do, and I am.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Jim. I'm going to come back to this same question for Archie, but I want to ask you first, Archie. This is a question that I wanted to ask you in the previous section. We kind of ran out of time there. Is there a place in the world of cooking for everyone, even if you just cook one thing?
I believe so. I believe now, with social media the way it is, there's a niche for everyone. You could specialize in anything and have a gravitation to it from other people. Just think about the specialty foods that are at fairs and festivals right now and how that's just taken off. You could just invent something and go to a festival and say, this is what I do. And, that's why I tell veterans and kids as well, because I also became a member of the Kiwanis Club in Antioch Delta, to really just get into food. If you like it, let's just start cultivating that nourishing that skill and whatever it is that you like about food, because if it's just specific, it could actually become something a lot more and a lot bigger for you.
Yeah, it sounds like each of our our guests tonight have had an experience with joining a club or some type of social organization after the military. Aaron, I know you're working with younger students. Do you participate in any student veteran clubs, or are there clubs that you reached out to that you felt were really helpful to you as you were learning about not only your culinary experience, but also just being a veteran now and taking off the uniform?
I had a little bit different path. I didn't have, when I left the service, I was at a small duty station in Kansas City, and while there's a huge veterans community, there's not an active base there. And so you don't have as many of the services. And so I didn't connect with any organizations until I started teaching. And I've always tried to be a mentor or sponsor for the college veterans groups at every school I've worked at. And I always just try to help, veterans who maybe don't quite understand how to get their paperwork through the VA or having trouble figuring out a schedule so they can get their full benefits. I always try to be a mentor for that. But yeah, I personally didn't really have a whole lot of groups to reach out to when I first got out of the service.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that could always be challenging, but it's good that you're helping veterans connect now with those benefits, and hopefully the county veteran service offices as well. If you can connect them to their local ones, that's always helpful. Even our veteran service organizations, like Archie mentioned earlier, will help veterans understand those benefits a little bit. Archie, I'll go back to you. What is your most rewarding experience in terms of your barbecue, in terms of your experience using the VA benefits, catering, all of that?
I think it all actually just happened recently over the past 2 months. My good friend, Steve Todd, he passed away in April, very unexpectedly. He was a past commander with the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Brentwood and very active in all the other organizations as well with me. We partnered with John Muir and La Clinica in a partnership to help veterans find other ways to seek health care when they couldn't get to the VA by using the care of La Clinica. So we just did so many things over the last 10 years to help the community. And when he passed away, I was able to fly to Texas to help his family file benefits, because that's something that I did and still do as a volunteer. So I was able to help her understand the death benefit situation and the claim process and apply the proper way. And then just recently, I was able to cook for him, his family, and 300 of his best closest friends and supporters at his going away ceremony. And I cooked the things that he wanted me to cook, that he loved, and it was just great. And there was nothing left. So it was just, you could just feel everybody's energy there. And it was just so positive. You could feel that, that he was looking down saying, and this is exactly what I wanted everybody to taste. And, what I believe that you could do, Archie. So it was a great thing for me. It just happened.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I love how you use your skill in barbecuing to essentially honor your friend at their passing and help celebrate their life. So that's beautiful. Thank you again for sharing.
I've got just a general question. The restaurant industry is one of the largest, in our economy, with lots of opportunities from busboys to front of the house, back of the house, et cetera. And it seems there's a variety of paths to get into that industry. Aaron, maybe you might be better qualified, but obviously formal programs like at DVC are one way. What are some of the other ways that people can do it if they don't have the time or commitment or ability to go through a formal 2 or 3 year program?
Well, I will tell you that the industry is so understaffed right now that if you're interested, just go ask. They'll give you a job. and that'll let you dip your toe in. You may feel like a fish out of water at first, but they'll take their time and they'll train you the way they want to train you. And that'll give you an idea if you actually want to live that lifestyle. It is not easy. It's hard. It's hard work. You're on your feet all day long. Forget about birthdays and holidays and weekends because you're in the kitchen working.
Yeah.
When other people are celebrating, you're the reason they're celebrating because you're cooking their dinner. So it's not for everybody. It's a hard life, but for me, it's been incredibly rewarding. I've owned my own restaurant. I've cooked for other people. I've done front of the house, back of the house. I've been a salesman and distributor for foods. So I've seen a little bit of all aspects of it, and I find it to be fascinating and thoroughly enjoyable. But I do know that not everybody feels the same way that I do. But if you're curious, jump in. Somebody will give you a chance.
You said something there which was interesting. The fact that during holidays and other events where people are out having a good time, you're serving them. So there's a thread there. The military service, you're serving the nation and the population as a whole. Well, you're doing it here. I mean, firemen, policemen on Labor Day, 4th of July, they're out there working, keeping people safe, and they're providing a service. It sounds like there's some opportunities there where your military service might actually be a benefit.
Oh, yeah.
I found it to be very complementary skill sets, but I don't want to hog all the camera time.
Well, even if you can't do like Aaron, as far as just a total, managing your restaurant and things like that, you can follow this path here and just do what you can, while you can, and hopefully let it grow. So like me, I started off very slow, and just working along with my own disabilities, because like Aaron was saying, you're on your feet for so long. If you really have service-connected disabilities, and they're going to affect you, and then they're going to affect you mentally when you're not able to do your job the proper way. So it's going to be a chain reaction on you. So I had to really go slow and do what was in my own body's ability, and now it's culminated to where I am now. So it's really helped. I just piggybacking on what Aaron was saying, just don't stop, just try.
Agreed. I would agree with Archie and say that think outside the box too, because I also work for Live Nation and I cater for the artists backstage. And that's kind of a gig that's not all the time. And so I get to work around my own schedule. I get to pick the concerts that I want to do. And you get the opportunity to cook, which I love doing, but then you get to see amazing concerts and you get to meet the artists, and it just becomes this really amazing experience. And it's not your normal career. And, several of my friends, they go on tours and they get lots of other things. So it can be as big or as little as you want that career to be.
Jumping in on that, both Archie and Tiffany, you found a niche that works for you. But look at you. You're both confident, you're both very articulate, and you're working at something you love. And the key thing is you can do that. And you don't want to be a short order cook in a restaurant. I've been there. It's not fun. And working on over a hot grill 8 hours a day gets real old real quick.
Hey, some of us love it.
I loved it until the end of the day when I went to bend down and pick that pot up, and I was like a foot away from it. And the chef looked at me, he was like, "What's going on?" I said,
"Yeah,
I don't know what's going on. I thought I had it."
So maybe you could start as that line cook, but like Tiffany and Archie are saying, kind of think about where that's going to lead you, and just know that in this industry, the possibilities seem really endless. And both of you guys have gotten so creative with what you've done with your skill. Aaron, I wanted to ask you, do you ever encounter veterans in the classroom who are...
Oh, absolutely. I think, this is my 13th year teaching at the college level, and I have had a veteran in every semester I've taught. So, and oftentimes multiple. I do think that there's there's a draw to the kitchen for veterans. When you travel the world and you eat great food in Japan or Spain or Italy, you come back home and you can't eat it, right? And so
right.
I'm from New Orleans, and I grew up eating great Cajun and Creole. My mom was an excellent cook. Everybody's an excellent cook in New Orleans. And so I grew up eating good food. And when I moved to the Midwest, I didn't have access to that, and so I had to cook it myself if I wanted it. And the same is true of traveling the world with the Marine Corps. Foods that I ate in Japan, I couldn't get when I came back to the stateside. So I had to figure out a way to make that happen for myself. And so I think there's part of that natural draw, but also, the sort of the modern kitchen is they call it the brigade. The structure of the kitchen today was designed off of old French military brigade systems, and there's a hierarchy and there's a chain of command, and they built it military. And so Auguste Escoffier, the famous chef, instituted that system. And so when you're on the line cooking and you're reporting to the chef and the chef talks and everybody follows orders, there's something very familiar about that experience if you've ever served. It feels natural. It's like putting on an old coat.
Wow, what an interesting connection. I want to talk about what you said about going out on vacation and then you fall in love with the food and then you come home and you kind of miss that, right? Tiffany, what do you think, do you think that folks are benefiting from cooking at home, can benefit from cooking at home, even if they're not interested in working in a restaurant?
Oh, definitely. I mean, because when you're cooking, you're sharing your love and you're sharing your food with those around you. So even cooking at home for your family, for your friends, for just get-togethers, for your kids, getting your family together in the kitchen, that's one of my favorite things. I have my kids in the kitchen with me and we're all playing music and dancing and just having a really great time. It just really brings people together. I firmly believe that food is love. And so it brings love out, it brings fun out, and there's an opportunity to do it in all ways.
Well, it sounds like there may be an opportunity for a cookbook here. A few years ago, we picked up one called the Fireman's Cookbook, and it was a series of recipes because they're on a 2, 3, 4-day shift and they have to prepare their own meals. Anybody got an idea out there for a veterans cookbook?
It's a good idea. It's a good idea.
You could start out with SOS and move on from there.
Get this group together for that.
How could we make a 5-star version of SOS?
Oh man, I don't know.
Oh, a little crab and lobster maybe.
Well, I think we got to come up with a plan right now. Each one of you will have to take a chapter and move forward with that.
It's one of the things part of my volunteering, I cooked for different organizations when they're having fundraisers and stuff. One of the best ones I did was a Culture to Culture Foundation, a Chinese American Mental Health Association project. But I went over and cooked. We had all these incredible Chinese dishes. And I made a cold noodle dish called Dan Dan Mian. And at the end of the dinner, everybody's saying, "Who made that wonderful Dan Dan Mian?" Yeah, the old barbarian over there.
Well, it sounds good. You're going to have to cook some up and ship it to us.
Well,
we're just going to have an event where we all come together.
Exactly. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to wrap up. That ends our conversation for the evening. Again, I want to thank all of our guests, our veterans, for sharing their love of cooking with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed our conversation tonight. We leave you with some resources if you found our conversation inspiring. Meals on Wheels provides meals and groceries for those in need. Learn more at mealsonwheelsamerica.org. Diablo Valley College has a culinary program for budding chefs in Contra Costa County. Find them at dvc.edu. Veteran Love Foundation teaches veterans to cook free of charge. For more information, go to veteranlovefoundation.com. The Delancey Street Foundation helps people with addiction issues find recovery and a home in the restaurant industry. Reach out to them at delanceystreetfoundation.org. Veterans Voices is brought to you in part by contributions from the Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation, dedicated to helping veterans near you. American Legion Post 246, honoring the tradition of the American Legion in Danville. If you would like to help sponsor Veterans Voices, you can donate to Veterans Voices, care of Diablo Valley Veterans Foundation. Get in touch with them at diabloveterans.org. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week or check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. You can also rewatch this episode and many others on our YouTube channel, Veterans Voices of Contra Costa. So be sure to subscribe. Our next show will air on Monday, August 14th at 7 p.m. We'll be talking about sleep issues. You won't want to miss it. To all of our veterans and their families, thank you for serving. To all of you who tuned in tonight, thanks for watching and have a great evening.